Welcome to Emerging Adults with Sickle Cell, navigating the transition from teen to adulthood, presented by Journey to Excellence. We're honored to bring you an incredible panel of experts, warriors, and caregivers who will share their insights and experiences with you. First, we introduce Caitlin Adams, a 26-year-old sickle cell SS warrior. Caitlin holds a Bachelor of Science in Social Work from Morgan State University and is the proud founder of Pain Meets Power Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to providing support, resources, and community to those with chronic pain illnesses. Caitlin successfully obtained a proclamation in Charles County, Maryland for World Sickle Cell Day, celebrated every June 19th. She was also instrumental in initiating House Bill 1352, a groundbreaking legislative effort to mandate education for staff and faculty at historically Black colleges and universities in Maryland, ensuring they are equipped to provide reasonable accommodations for students with sickle cell disease. And when Caitlin is not advocating for sickle cell community, Caitlin enjoys traveling and shopping with her mother, Tijuana Adams, who also serves as a dedicated caregiver and panelist today. Next, we welcome Adriana Downs, a recent high school graduate with a stellar 4.0 grade point average. Adriana is eagerly looking forward to her college journey as a nursing student at Stevenson University. Living with sickle beta thalassemia zero, Adriana's personal experience fuels her passion to become a pediatric hematology nurse. Adriana is a strong believer and Christian leader at her high school, and she is dedicated to using her voice and story to inspire others. A daughter of two loving parents, Adriana shares a love of photography with her father, Darren Downs. Darren is a dedicated caregiver and advocate in the sickle cell community. As the primary caregiver for Adriana, he has helped her find her voice and advocate for others facing similar challenges. Darren enjoys volunteering for sickle cell events and is passionate about supporting families through faith, community, and action. Our next panelist is Ayanna Johnson, a rising sophomore at the University of Alabama, majoring in microbiology on the pre-med track. She is actively involved in the Black Student Union, Dance Alabama Dance Team, and the Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students. Ayanna is a violinist, small business owner, and the founder of Ayanna's Hope Cells, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting hospitalized pediatric patients, especially those living with sickle cell disease. Through the nonprofit, Ayanna provides comfort objects like stuffed animals to children during hospital stays, with support from Build-A-Bear Workshop, which sponsors bears for her initiative. An award-winning scholar, Ayanna has been recognized by the National Honor Society, National Beta Club, Governor's School for the Arts, and the Suffolk Art League. As a sickle cell warrior herself, she is a passionate advocate for chronic illness communities. She currently serves as Youth Legislative Advisor to Delegate Candy Mundan King, working to advance legislation that improves care and outcomes for those with sickle cell disease. Ayanna uses her platform to educate, destigmatize, and empower. Joining Ayanna is her mother, Emion Johnson, affectionately known to us as Emmy. Emmy is a dynamic and dedicated advocate for the sickle cell community, blending a unique blend of personal passion, professional expertise, and unwavering commitment to impactful change. A dual military veteran, Emion not only served the nation with honor, but also found her lifelong husband and partner in service, sharing a bond strengthened by shared values and experience. Together, they are proud parents to our panelist, Ayanna. We are also privileged to have Dr. Nina Anderson, affectionately known as Dr. Nina. Dr. Nina is the director and founder of Tova Community Health Incorporated, an advanced practice nurse care coordinator and nurse consultant at Tova Healthcare LLC in Wilmington, Delaware. She is a dedicated member of the American Society of Hematology and the Sickle Cell Adult Provider Network. Dr. Anderson founded the Tova Awards, the James Fawcett III Sickle Cell Awareness 5K Walk Run, the Tova Global World Sickle Cell Day Symposium, and the Tova Fund. Dr. Anderson has published numerous peer-reviewed articles and given presentations on sickle cell disease worldwide. She is a renowned sickle cell expert who developed a telehealth model in partnership with Johns Hopkins University to increase access to specialty care, a model that has been nationally recognized. In 2017, Dr. Anderson won the Delaware Woman Owned Small Business of the Year award. She has been named Best Holistic Health Practitioner from 2020 to 2024. In her spare time, Dr. Nina is an accompanied violinist, appointed to serve on the board of the Music School of Delaware, and enjoys running, walking, attending concerts at the Kimmel Center for Performing Arts, and spending time with her family and friends. Last but certainly not least, we introduce our phenomenal moderator, Elodie Antala. Elodie is a passionate health equity advocate with deep experience working alongside the sickle cell disease community. As a warrior and advocate, she has led and supported efforts to elevate the voices of SCD warriors and caregivers. Elodie has collaborated closely with patient advocacy groups, engaged with government agencies, developed insight-driven content for advisory boards, and helped design research initiatives to better understand barriers for accessing emerging therapies. Her work is rooted in building trust, amplifying community voices, and ensuring that people living with SCD are not only heard, but are active partners in shaping the future of care. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling with her husband and caregiver.
Prepare yourselves to transition. From the caregiver perspective, how did you prepare your warrior to make that transition? Did you talk about appointments? How would they handle appointments? How would they handle insurance? From the warrior perspective, what were your fears? What did you think about? How did you get yourself mentally prepared to now be in the adult side? And then from the clinical perspective, what is the advice that is generally given to transitioning families into adulthood? So I'm going to start just with the Adams. Caitlin and Tijuana, if you would start just by centering us about how you prepared into getting into the transition process. You're muted, lovely ladies.
Sorry. Hello, everybody. My name is Caitlin Adams. This is my mom, Tijuana. And so to transition into adult care, I would say I had numerous talks with my mom and dad. They took the forefront, of course, as a child. Um, so just numerous of talks when I was around that age of like 16, 17, 18, about getting to the hospital, um, when to actually go to the hospital, because even if as a child navigating that pain, your parents are still in the forefront of the decisions. So just taking on the decision making process, just them guiding me through that. And then also with my hematologist, um as a child or pediatric person, just having talks with them about how the care would be different, about how the that passion maybe not being there for every provider that you see, about how that compassion might not show up, but you still prevail, and you still um go through your process and advocate for yourself as best as you can. So that's how I kind of, just by talks and learning and seeing my parents really take the forefront and guide me.
And Good morning. My name is Tijuana Adams, and I am Caitlin's mom. Don't want to leave out her dad, who is also a caregiver as well, and she is a daddy's girl. But unfortunately, he is under medical care, so he was not able to be a part of this today with us. So I wanted to make that known that he is big access in her care as well. But one of the main things was being able to find new doctors that would fit Caitlin's needs. That was one of the biggest things. And adjusting to their care models, because going from pediatric to adult care, it's a completely different care model that the doctors have. So adjusting to that. Also being able to fill the gaps in treatment. When you go to adult care, uh, they kind of like assume that because you're in the adult care that your parents do not play a role anymore because you are considered an adult. But trying to fill those gaps and being able to guide Caitlin in the right direction and being able to be an advocate for herself and giving her good advice of making good decisions about her care. So that was how we went along with doing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Adriana, as a newly graduate, how are you handling your transition, or how have you handled your
That's good.
transition?
Good morning. I want to point out that I am still in pediatrics and I just started going into that transition journey.
Yes.
But I feel like my parents and my doctors are well preparing me so far as speaking up for myself and advocating for myself more and making my own decisions, especially now that I'm 18. And really just making sure that I speak up about what's best for me and, getting the right advice about who is recommended as my doctor, as my future hospital that I may go to outside of pediatrics.
That's really good to hear that you're still going through the process and learning as you go along the way. Well, you have a beautiful panel of people to ask questions if more things come up. um, and then if I can, what about Ayana? Ayana, can you talk to us a little bit more about your transition into adulthood? How did you prepare?
Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. I would say it started really young. This is my mom here with me, and she
Hi,
can
Mom.
attest to the fact that they really worked with me on making sure I knew what my medication list was from a very early age. She would make sure I knew them going into appointments and stuff like that from when I was like 5 years old. She would make sure I knew what they were and what type of sickle cell I have and what helps with my sickle cell, what does not help, or what I'm not supposed to have with a sickle cell crisis, like how we're not supposed to have ice. She made sure I knew that and could not only know that, but communicate that to somebody else who could be trying to help. So for me, I think it started really young. And so it was actually easier than I thought transitioning into adult care because I knew myself very well, I knew my protocols, and then I was able to communicate those with other people. So to the point of, somebody was trying to give me something that they shouldn't have or that I know doesn't work for me, I was able to say, wait, no, this is my protocol, this is what works for me, and be able to communicate that. I would say it was very difficult choosing to go to college far away. It was a great decision. I still like really enjoy my college. However, going somewhere where the doctors don't know me, my team doesn't know me as much as my team at home. So it really has been a struggle trying to get them to, learn me and who I am as a person and not just a patient. And so having that sort of drilled with like those drills drilled into me since I was young of kind of what I need and how my sickle cell works for me specifically, I think has really, really helped me in the adult world and transitioning.
Yeah, and Emmy, you know, Ayana just really did a great job at detailing how you prepared her. Is there anything that you want to add that was really important for Ayana to know as she made her transition?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so for us, it was actually a natural progression to have her be a part of her own journey and her own care early because her father and I were both we're in the uniform, we're in the military, we were both deployable at the same time. So I felt like it was my duty to make sure she was prepared because if anybody else had to come in and take care of her, because we had to give a list of who could possibly take care of her if something happened to us. Um, she had to know how to communicate that. So like if a provider was talking to me, I would say, well, talk to her, no matter how young she was, it's her body. Like she can help make decisions. I mean, of course I had to help. We had to make executive decisions, but still making her included and making sure she had a voice early. That was like my main goal, to empower her, because I mean, the reality is some parents don't come back from a deployment.
Yeah. Yeah, communication is really important. We've all gone through this process with being in the clinic and not being heard, and being able to communicate the needs of what we want throughout our treatment journey is really important. So kudos to you all. And I don't want to leave Mr. Darren out. If you want to share a little bit about what was important to you what is important to you in working with Adriana and transitioning her into adulthood.
Yeah, good morning. For us, Adriana, we started, when I say we, her mom and I started early preparing her, especially the advocating part, getting connected to a village or community within the sickle cell community. And the main thing for me is helping Adriana find a voice, because she can be a little quiet sometimes, introverted when it comes to speaking up for herself and asking those questions. Trying to move her into an arena to where she's not so much dependent on us asking her questions when she goes to the doctors. She's been doing a great job in transitioning to that person. Still has some work to do, but I think just helping her to find her voice, making sure the little things like that she has her own insurance card now, that it's not that we're providing an insurance card, we're checking her in at the desk. She does all that on her own, go to the doctor, just kind of have a seat, let her kind of manage the appointment on her own. And she does a really good job with it. So I'm still asking questions when we go into the doctor's office, especially now with her going to college, finding out the best hospitals, since Children's in DC is going to be a little far away. Found out that maybe John Hopkins may be a better option for us. But it's still a journey. We're still learning, transitioning, and just hearing from the Adams is really helping me, and seeing how they handle it, and what I should be doing and can be doing to help Adriana.
Yeah. So, like you said, and many of you said on the panel, that communication, learning to stand your ground, communicating, have more confidence in advocating for yourself is part of the transition, and learning to be more confident in yourself. Dr. Nina, from the healthcare perspective, as you're hearing our panelists continue to talk, as a healthcare specialist in this space, what are the ways that you've been communicating with warriors and their families about making that transition? As we know, it is one of the most dangerous parts of a warrior's journey. So as you're hearing that there's communication that is highlighted, advocacy, confidence, we want to hear a little bit about what are some of your guiding principles in transitioning.
So I just want to just say that I'm just so amazed of our sickle cell warriors today, all the great work they're doing, and just even just knowing about all of their talents. Like Ayana is a violinist, and I am too, so we have to get together. I would say back to Caitlin's mother's, sharing that the adult care model is a lot different. And I can just remember my time working at the pediatric hospital, and it's colorful, it's whimsical. Everyone's so friendly when you go in there. Everybody knows who you are. And then when you go to the adult care world, it's a lot different. All the walls are neutral. The furniture is either black or brown. They may have an artificial plant in there. And it's completely different. But that doesn't mean that as a warrior, we don't set the standards that we deserve access to exceptional quality care. And that starts with making sure that you build a team of providers around you that care about you and want to invest in you as a person. And as a sickle cell expert, I value building personal relationships with my clients. And so that being said, is part of transition is knowing that it is a process and that you have to plan for transition. You can stay in the pediatric hospital system till you're 21. So if you're going to college, that doesn't mean that you can't be connected with your pediatric hematologist. Telehealth visits can do that as well. But if you're going away to college, you want to get connected with a local hematologist in the area, and perhaps a family practice provider in an urgent care center if you need to. The other is when you go into hospital as an adult, you're not necessarily followed by a hematologist. You're seen by a hospitalist or a tenum locum. So they manage the care when you're in a hospital. One of the clinical challenges I have is that the hospitalists don't want you to be involved in your patient's care. So I will call the hospitalist and say, hey, give you a heads up. My client is coming in. He has a sickle cell flare up. Typically, this is what works for his pain. I would make a recommendation. And I get criticized for that, to say, well, why are you so involved in your patient's care? Or we'll call you if we need you. But I'm actually trying to help them take care of the patient because I know them better than they do. And I can make sure that their hospital care is smooth and that they get what they need, because most warriors don't want to be in the hospital. They're only in the hospital because whatever they did at home didn't work. Right. And lastly, I was seeing on the advocacy piece is that as a young adult, as a parent, making sure that just start teaching your child a little bit about their sickle cell and how to communicate that with healthcare providers. So, do you know your sickle cell genotype? Do you know your baseline hemoglobin? What is your baseline reticulocyte count? What medications do you take and what are they for? And then as a bonus, what do you typically take at home for your pain? And if you come into the hospital, what is your pain regimen? And to be able to articulate that is phenomenal, because for me, I would value that because I don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you know what works for you, I'm going to give that to you. Right. Not all of the times that happens, but part of the advocacy part is getting to know your body, getting to know what works for you, and advocating that you get what you need when you go to the hospital. Mm-hmm. I would say there's a lot of other things as well, but I would say that making sure that you plan ahead, getting the understanding of the landscape of the area, and know that you set a standard that you are entitled to having access to exceptional quality care, and you build a team of providers around you that can make that happen. Yeah.
Those are wonderful tips. I know when I was transitioning as a warrior, my dad kept telling me, know your body. So, it's very important, but knowing your body means all the things that you just listed, and it requires that level of understanding of who you are to be able to advocate for yourself. So with all of those tips that you kind of provided, it kind of leads us to our next question. So all of our panelists and caregivers have or are training their warriors in knowing their body, what their needs are, and what they need to do to prepare when they get into that space. So Caitlin, now that you've sort of transitioned and are experiencing a little bit of adult care, when you look back on that transition, what were some of the biggest blind spots about your overall adult care that you want to talk about and kind of detail to, you know, shine the light on what maybe some of the gaps are in care? So what were some of those blind spots you found?
So some of the blind spots, I want to speak on what Dr. Nina was talking about with the hospitalist. Your care when you go into the hospital is not with your hematologist. And that was a blind side to me. I'm like, where's the person who knows me best? Where's the person that knows my protocol? Please listen to me. Please, I know me, but sometimes it doesn't just work that easy. You have to fight for it. And my mom, still to this day at 26, I am very close to my parents, so they are on FaceTime when the doctors are coming in, just being that support system, because sometimes it can be terribly intimidating to
Yeah.
speak to a doctor that doesn't know you, and you're asking for these medications that we've been introduced to as a child, but that are so, I don't want to say potent, but so strong, and you're coming in asking for that, and they're like, wait, So that was a blind spot. Another blind spot was just on how sickle cell can really quickly become the biggest part of your life. As a child, education, self-development, those are the biggest parts of your life. Of course, sickle cell is, but that kind of plays a background. You're playing, you're making friends, you're learning, you're in school, you're in all these activities. But when you transition into adulthood, sickle cell can quickly become the biggest part of your life. It affects your finances, it affects how you feel on the daily basis, it affects your friendships, it affects um pretty much everything as a adult, in the adult world. It's pretty scary. A job,
Yeah.
finances, which I'm
Yes.
struggling with. So that was a blind spot for me, how it could come to the forefront of sickle cell really affects every decision I make.
Yeah, and that's a very good point to bring up, you know, that sickle cell does affect every little part of our lives, and how we manage that can sometimes be overlooked or misunderstood. One of the biggest things that you mentioned is financial support. So, how do we even get support to transition and understanding how sickle cell kind of takes over all of those decision-making processes? But I want to go back to the earlier point that you made about hospital care and how sickle cell also just takes over your body. So from Dr. Nina's perspective, can you talk to us a little bit about some of those unaddressed clinical challenges that Caitlin is talking about, in terms of having so many things happen to you, but now you're in the adult world and more things come up, more complications come up that you may not even have been ready for. So what are some of those unaddressed clinical challenges that you've observed in your practice?
Okay, for me. So I always say, just back to what Caitlin said, is fighting. Even though I'm an outsider and I'm coming in to advocate for my clients, is that the healthcare providers don't want to listen to you. My background is in nursing. I'm not a hematologist, but I consider myself a sickle cell expert. And I know my patients very well. I know what works for them. And I know that sometimes if you aggressively treat pain early, you can reduce hemolysis and help them recover faster and get out of the hospital faster. And so the healthcare system still has this hierarchy, and you want to advocate, you want to be able to share what works. These are my recommendations, but at the end of the day, they're just my recommendations, and the hospitalists can do what they want. You're consulting with a hematologist, so you may not see the hematologist, or they may not consult with the hematologist that takes care of you on a routine basis. And so these are the kind of changes that we are faced with in the adult care system. But back to Caitlin's point is having an advocate. And this is just with anyone. If you're going into the hospital, you want to have somebody that's going to be able to advocate for you. So somebody knows what your personalized care plan is, what your personalized pain plan is, and be able to FaceTime if they're not able to be there. But someone is going to come and check on you on a daily basis to kind of help you advocate for yourself. If you're in severe pain, you might not be at a mentation where you can really be clear and crystal as what is going on or be able to articulate effectively what you need. And so that advocate or that support team is going to help you. And I would say that as a young adult, and here I'm going into my late years of life, is that you still need a community of and a support team around you. We need support for survival. So do not be afraid to ask for help. Do not be afraid to have someone, if it's a family or friend, to say, hey, I'm going to the hospital. I need you to help me with this. I need you to FaceTime with the doctors because I'm not getting what I need. And know that these are the challenges that you're going to face, but there are effective ways for you to get what you need. And being able to build those type of skills around you to know how to advocate for yourself becomes more important through your life journey. And the last part I want to say is that transition, you're going into another chapter of your life. Don't look at this as a memorial service. There's so many things in the world that you're going to be exposed to, new relationships that you're going to be able to build. You're learning more about yourself. Don't be afraid to get things wrong. Don't be afraid to fail. That's a part of life that's going to build resilient skills, make you build your maturity level, and be able to bounce back from these type of difficult times. That's what makes a warrior, and continue to build and grow in your journey.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Dr. Nina. I mean, that part of transitioning, we often forget that it's building character. And although it's it's a tumultuous time when you're in the hospital, it can sometimes feel like it's the end of the world. But we all grow up to be really amazing warriors. And so that's a really good point to make for all of us to remember, to take that on as a good challenge for us to live full lives. That that's that resonates with me, and I bet it resonates with the panelists as well. And I want to bring in Ayana on this point because I want to talk to her. Ayana, I want to talk to you a little bit about that advocacy piece of being able to talk about your needs, and your mom training you from 5 years old, and being able to stand in your truth and advocacy and communicating. And Dr. Nina talking to us about some of the gaps that exist within the hospital lists and not giving you the care that you know to be true is needed. So in your experience, what were some hard truths about taking care of yourself or advocating for yourself? You know, that difficult piece that doctors really sometimes just don't listen to us, or that you're living in pain and it's being overlooked maybe by friends in your life. But what are some of your hard truths about transitioning and adult care that you've advocated for yourself?
Yes, I think that actually is very true to my story and kind of what has happened this year as I transition into college. I've dealt with multiple hospitalists, but even hematologists who don't understand the multitude of what it is to deal with a sickle cell crisis, especially at my age where I realize one of the hardest truths are my body is still changing. And because of that, I'm starting to have crises in different spots that I haven't had them in before. And also starting to experience more of my veins blowing sometimes, getting a harder time accessing my veins for blood. Like that, those were some of the hardest things to realize, which might seem like small things. But for me, it was really traumatizing as someone who has gone through about 4 blood clots now. So I went through every week them having to draw blood because of my clots and having to track those. Because of that, that it was really traumatic for me to then be in a position where, because our veins have been accessed so many times, sometimes it's just a lot harder to get get a good vein. And I started to think something was wrong with me. I started to think it was my fault. What am I not doing? Realizing that this is just a normal part of transitioning into adulthood when your body is starting to change all over again. So you're kind of having to relearn and reteach yourself, okay, what are my protocols? What are the best regimens for me? And having to communicate those to other people. A medication that I've talked to my doctors about is ketamine. A lot of guys might know ketamine and how strong that drug is.
Yeah.
And in the adult world, not having my mom to be there with me, and especially communicating with different hospitalists, voicing that I need a medication that is much stronger than Dilaudid, for example, which they're more used to us taking. It was like, well, okay,
Yeah.
why do you need that? I don't know if we do that. And there's a lot of undertones of just institutionalized and systematic racism
Yeah.
and bias that I experience, even though I'm young, as a young Black woman, experiencing that in the hospital without my mom being there, and I'm in a vulnerable position, so that a lot of times providers think that they can then sort of manipulate you into doing what they think is best and not what is best for me and my body. And I had to say, listen, this is what works for me. You might have other patients that this works for, but this is what works for me. And yes, having my mom on the phone, constantly on FaceTime, to be able to speak up when I couldn't always say something, when I wasn't feeling the most coherent and able to. And I'm still gonna do that, no matter how old I get. It's just about having that second voice to be able to communicate that. Also, a very key part of my journey, I had multiple hospitalizations in these past 2 semesters, and I got put on a med surge floor. So I don't know if you all know what that is, but that is where you have a lot of different patients from multiple different issues could be going on. And a lot of the times there are patients that are getting shipped off to rehabilitation facilities who have struggled with drug addictions in the past. And that is something that is completely everybody's journey. So I don't think you should judge anybody based off of what they might be going through in that regard either. However, that's not my journey. And because I have sickle cell, the stigma a lot of the times is that that's something that I've went through before, or that's something that I'm currently going through because of what I look like, and because of the stigmas that come with having sickle cell disease and the stronger medications that we need and that I'm needing more as I get older, and things are changing and things might not work the same way that they did before. I need stronger medication sometimes. Then they're looking at me differently because of the environment I'm in as well. And that is also something I had to retrain myself to remember, that that's not okay, that I shouldn't be treated differently because of your implicit or explicit bias that you have towards me. And I really had to um, kind of just retrain my brain to remembering how that's not okay. And I think we get really used to, as sickle cell patients, used to the mistreatment and used to people, not treating us with the same level of respect or care that they would for, maybe a cancer patient, where it's more visible, the pain that they're going through. Just because I'm not kicking and screaming doesn't mean I'm not in pain. And it's just because I've learned how to deal with it because we have to. So I've learned how to, cope in different ways, but it doesn't mean, my pain is not real and it's not valid. And so I need, doctors to listen when I say, hey, this isn't working, but this is what will work. Um, if we have time, I don't know, my mom wants to speak on that too, because I remember her getting she was frustrated about
I,
this.
I want to quickly just get some of Adriana's thoughts about the self-advocacy as she's transitioning into adulthood with her family, and hearing your story, Ayana, in advocating for yourself and the challenges that you're facing, and being able to have that voice, what Dr. Nina previously stated, of just knowing your body and knowing your protocol. I want to hear from you a little bit, Adriana, about what
Really
all
quick,
of,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I just wanted to say to Yana, I resonated so much with what you just said, and you are seen. I hear you, I feel you, you are seen. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a beauty queen. Um, so yeah, thank you for saying that. And so yeah, to you, Adriana, like, talk to us a little bit about when you're hearing the stories from your fellow warriors, and you're working towards making that transition, and learning to speak up for yourself. What does self-advocacy really mean to you? And what are some of the ways that you're working towards speaking up for yourself, and standing your ground for your future medical care into adulthood?
Yeah, self-advocacy to me means speaking up for my needs and prioritizing my health no matter the situation, and really just knowing that, hey, your health comes first. Speak up for yourself. And like my dad said, I'm more of a quiet person, introverted, so that's been really more of a challenge for me. But the most challenging part of speaking up for myself is, especially being a young adult, healthcare providers don't really see me like adequate enough to speak up about my needs when I know my body best. And sometimes I wouldn't really feel heard when I've tried speaking up. So that would like be one of the biggest challenges for me when it comes to self-advocacy. But right now I'm really practicing like asking questions or making my own decisions on what kind of treatment I'm going to be given, or really just knowing my body and knowing what's best for me.
Yeah, that, and are you finding yourself having, what sort of questions are you having about advocacy?
Um, Questions about advocacy or
Yeah, so what's, as you're making that transition and learning and having your parents' support, are you still finding that you're a little bit, there's still some things that you'd like to learn, maybe?
um maybe just more about like going to my appointments and really just like getting more in that adult setting,
Yeah.
like my dad said, making sure I have insurance, making sure I can set my own appointments, and really just doing more adult stuff.
That makes sense. Thank you, again, like all of you sharing your beautiful stories, and the triumphs that you're going through. And as we continue our conversations, I want to focus a little bit on the caregivers, and wanting to talk to the caregivers, both Tijuana, and Emmy, about, and Darren, about some of the fears and anxieties that you have about future treatments that are on the horizon, treatments that you might be considering for your kid, for your children, disease modifying treatments, stem cell transplant, gene therapies. What are some of the fears that come to your mind when you're talking about treatment changes, and how you would be making these decisions for your children? We'll start with Darren.
Okay.
Yeah, probably one of my biggest concerns is seeing the gene therapy uh treatments and the stem cell, how expensive they are. One of my biggest concerns is the insurance companies hindering that treatment being available to all sickle cell patients. Um, the affordability I mean, it's just not possible for most sickle cell patients. And if the insurance company's not on board, I don't see how it's going to make a difference for us. So that's probably my biggest concern. I talked to our doctor, and I know he said that one of the things the insurance company looks at is they want a sickle cell patient who's being hospitalized at least twice a year. I guess helping them to justify that through a lifetime, it's going to be more cost effective to give them the gene therapy than to spend the money on hospitalizations. So I know that fight is continuing. I know it's organizations like JTE, MSCDA, Skanker. I mean, all organizations are really fighting hard for this push to do the statistics and help the insurance companies see that um, it is a good choice to make that available. As far as the gene therapy, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a good choice for Adriana or not. That's something we're really considering and looking at. She does do pretty well with the hydroxyurea. Her hospitalizations have been, I don't think she's been hospitalized in like the last year or so. You know, she has some emergency room visits. She manages her pain at home best she can. So, you know, the gene therapy, it'd be nice to know that, you know, she can go jump in the pool and not worry about how cold the water is. And she can have overnight stays and vacations and not worrying about if she's going to have a crisis. So that part is appealing. But I know there's some other concerns with it that we're still looking at and considering.
And then Miss Emmy, go ahead, please.
Hi, I think some of my fears are, well, it's still an issue of genotype. So although, we're genotype SC, it's always a situation of, oh, you're SC. Well, I always have to bring the point that she's had multiple PEs, she's had osteomyelitis, she's had, and she's not typical in terms of the way she presents. So when she comes into the hospital, it's a matter of, oh, well, does she really have a PE? Like these are the questions they ask. She doesn't have shortness of breath, okay, but so I mean, it's kind of like I continuously have to work and push. So with her, I think it's that situation of not yet. Like things are coming, but not you yet. So, and then that takes a psychological toll on, okay, now I'm again being excluded. So one time, Ayana told someone, do not marginalize me in a marginalized group, you know? So, but it's still happening. So when I have the opportunity to talk to providers and researchers, I'm saying to them, we understand that how is it that every genotype is included but not SC? And I'm sure a lot of people have those same questions. So those are like all the progress we've made to get here, to get to 18, then, we're still waiting in the line, which could be good and bad. But like in terms of the disease modifying agents, I would ask the question, how will this affect our community later? It's great that we're making strides, but how is this gonna ultimately affect us later? And there are no questions a lot of times, and no answers to those particular questions.
Yeah. And Ms. Tijuana, if you want to go ahead and answer your questions, we heard about cost, we heard about future effects. What are some of your fears?
My fears are setback and relapse. And the reason why I say that is because Caitlin had a bone marrow transplant approximately 13 years ago, and we were in a clinical trial, and I was her donor. And unfortunately, it did not graft. Um, so that was a big setback for Caitlin, physically and mentally. Went through a lot with that. I mean, we went through the whole process, living away from home for 4 months and having chemo. So it was a lot. Um, Currently, we are trying now for her to be a candidate for another bone marrow transplant, which we have come across some blockage challenges in that because of the first one not being successful. They look at, well, the chemo that was taken previously might affect her in a way that she might not be able to have children, and she might get leukemia, and they don't have a lot of experience or research in doing a second bone marrow a second bone marrow transplant on a sickle cell patient that did not graft. They do have research and experience on doing it for cancer patients, but not sickle cell patients. So the fear of the relapse and the setbacks that sickle cell patients have to, go through is very challenging. People think when they see on the news that this new treatment has come and it's gene therapy or bone marrow transplant. And this is because of not lack of knowledge. We immediately people feel like, oh, well, why can't Caitlin get into this program? And they don't realize that we have to go through different criterias to make that happen. And I guess people on the outside do not see that, but it's a lot. It's a lot to even qualify to get a gene therapy treatment or a bone marrow treatment. So we, as caregivers, which people don't understand, is that we feel the same way as our warrior does, and it affects the whole family. It affects the whole family in a way that each one of us have our own physical and mentally state when we deal with Caitlin with her sickle cell. So I really think the setback and the relapse is a fear that I have.
Yeah, that that's a very important point to bring up. How do we take care of our warriors after undergoing a therapy that may not have worked for them? And how do we continue to care for our warriors with these emerging treatments? And so as we're getting to the Q&A section, I want to ask Dr. Nina to respond a little bit to help us kind of talk to our panelists and caregivers who have these fears about emerging treatments. Dr. Nina, in your space as a sickle cell specialist, what are some of the ways that you are able to communicate with our families about some of the fears that they have about these treatments?
First, I want to acknowledge their fears. And as a healthcare provider on the front line, I share your sentiments. I want to say, as a primary specialty care provider, I have to fight with insurance companies to get a pain medication approved that they've been on for 3 to 5 years. So I can imagine, you know, the inundation and the fight with the insurance companies to get a gene therapy curative treatment option approved. And because this is so new and emerging, we don't know how this process is going to work. What are the long-term effects of gene therapy? And just recently, there is a bill put out too. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that may cut our Medicaid program. This is just emerging now, and we know that up to at least 50% of our warriors are insured through the Medicaid programs in our state. So, how will this impact their access to care at this present time and moving forward, and their ability to have access to these curative therapies? But one thing I want to say to you is that one thing that we control in our lives is ourselves. And so, learning to prioritize your mental and physical health through your well being, through self care activities and practices, really can help you right now on the front line manage your stress, invest in eating a healthy and balanced diet. Do you exercise on a regular basis? Do you get a quality night's sleep? And so I would say that part of my practice in sickle cell care is to work with my clients to be able to say, how can we prioritize your physical and mental health so that we can reduce your stress when you have these stressful events in your life? We don't want it to impact your sickle cell disease. We don't want it to cause more sickling and hemolysis, to increase your cortisol levels and inflammation in the body. And so learning techniques and tools like mindful meditation, to making sure that you eat a balanced diet, green leafy vegetables. If you're drinking enough water, staying hydrated helps to reduce your blood cells from sickling. These are things that we control. We control right now in our lives, regardless of what is going on around us. But I can honestly say that I don't know. I'm a sickle cell expert. I don't know what the long-term outcomes are. But right now, I'm fighting to make sure that our patients and our clients have access to care and that the Medicaid program stays sustainable. What are we doing in our local state? Have we reached out to our US senators and our Congress people to make sure that they understand and hear the stories to know that Medicaid is a program that's needed? And then secondly, what can we do now? We still have to take care of ourselves. Regardless of the new treatments that are coming out, to be included, we have to be in the best health that we can possible because there are inclusion and exclusion criteria. So if our kidneys are healthy, our heart is healthy, our brain is perfused well, then most likely we're going to qualify for this. So I would say prioritize your mental and physical health, learn about self-care techniques and self-care practice plans to keep you healthy and well right now with sickle cell.
Thank you. Those are really good advice, and just continuing to just pay attention to, in addition to what you've stated, Dr. Nina, and staying healthy, taking care of ourselves, paying attention to what our needs are, and eating healthy and exercising. There's also something to be said about what all of our caregivers talked about, which is to stay in the know of what's going on with the treatments and the questions that come up, and how they may find ways to get resources to understand all of these emerging treatments, but also know that there are people like yourself and themselves who are out there advocating for this information and for themselves. So I wanna open it up to our participants. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We will read off your questions to any of the panelists. If you are wondering about anything that they've stated, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer them. But as we wait for answers to come through or questions to come through, I wanted to ask all of you, if you could offer one piece of advice to a family just beginning to navigate a transition, to all of our panelists, what is the one piece of advice? We've heard some in our earlier conversation with some of the steps that Dr. Nina provided. So now, in reflecting on our conversation, Adriana, as you're hearing some of the steps that people are providing, what is one piece of advice that you would be giving to a family member just beginning this journey? And I'll start off with Darren and Adriana, what are some of your advice, one piece of advice that you would give?
One piece of advice I would give is to seek advice from warriors who have already gone through the process. Seek doctor and hospital recommendations, and really have a support team who will help you, support you, and guide you. And I feel like that's a really big role and really important part. And if you don't have that community, there's plenty of people here who are willing to help, who are open, because we're all a community in the sickle cell world.
Darren?
Yes, and I want to almost echo Adriana. Build your village. I mean, the support that's out here is here so you won't have to do this alone. This is not a journey you want to take on by yourself. Had a brother who passed away at the age of 28 in the 80s from complications of this disease. Didn't have this kind of support back then. I mean, the advocacy that's going on for warriors and caregivers and the treatments and just the people who generally are fighting to make this a easier journey for the warriors. They're there. They're in place. He didn't have it, but Adriana and the other warriors, it's here. And Adriana has done a great job in building her village. She has them in place outside of her family, and I would suggest and advise other warriors to do the same.
That's a great advice. Build your village. Miss Emmy, Ayana, what is one piece of advice?
For me, I would say do what you love. I'm a violinist and I'm also a dancer. I've been dancing for 15 years now, since I was about 3. I have a lot of other passions. I love to travel. I love to film and photograph. I love to create. I love to do art. So I always say I have sickle cell, but sickle cell doesn't have me. Like I always tell people to do what they're passionate about, and despite, having so many complications with my sickle cell and, having so many difficulties and challenges that you will face, it's not going to be easy. And it's not going to be easy to do your passions with this disease all the time. But I had so many people tell me I shouldn't dance, I shouldn't play violin, I shouldn't, do things that I wanted to do because of my disease process. And I just continue to do them because it keeps me busy. And so a part of having sickle cell, it's great to be active, and making sure you're not just waiting for the next crisis to come. You have an outlet and something that you want to do. But also too, it's just a lot of fun to be able to share my art and share my gifts with other people and touch somebody if I can.
And I've seen you dance, Ayana, and you do your thing. You're a beautiful dancer, and I feel very lucky that I've been able to see you dance. Go ahead, Miss Emmy.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, start the conversation early and often. There are gonna be bumps, but we have to just kind of, sometimes we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and sitting with it, and then figuring out how to spin it and make it work for us. A transition is not a handoff, it's a partnership. So we constantly reassess. We give Ayana the room to lead, even if it's messy. Um, but I'm learning to listen more than I fix. It's hard, but I'm learning to listen more than I fix, and stay close. Um, um, and let the growth happen. The only other thing I want to advise that I think needs to be pushed further is the medical alert card. We have access to the card. And we stand behind the card. It's a free service for us right now, but if we don't continue to use it, it's gonna go away. So your pain plan and everything goes in there. And if you have changes, it's a QR code that's on the card. And if you have changes, just make sure you update it and keep it with you. Thank you all.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Real quick before Caitlin and Tijuana, I want to remind the audience that if you have any questions, please just put them in the chat as we continue our conversation. So go ahead, the Adams. What is one piece
So
of advice that you would
one
give to family
one piece of advice that I would give to a family is to just stay
transitioning? Yeah.
transitioning,
Mhm.
is to just stay true to your values outside of having sickle cell, your family values, how you were brought up. Stay true to yourself and your personality. Um, this disease affects everyone differently. No warrior is the same, and that is a misconception in this community, is that what one thing will work for someone else will work for another person, and that is not true. So stay true to yourself, stay true to what you know, learn yourself, learn yourself, study yourself, sit with those feelings, sit with those disappointments, that anguish, that pain, sit with it and learn yourself. And yeah.
And I will piggyback on Caitlin as being a caregiver for a sickle cell warrior transitioning into adult care as a caregiver. Um, which I am still learning this, is that as a parent, when they are younger, we like to always be there. We like to kind of be able to control what goes on with them because we are afraid of them being out into the world. And when they transition into an adult, we do have to step back, let them try new things, let them make mistakes, but overall still be there to support them and be an advocate for them. And as a caregiver of a 26-year-old, I'm still learning that because I still kind of want to be in control. But of course, I'm trying to learn how to just, step back and let Caitlin take control of her life because it is her life.
Yeah. Yeah, that I would all of your advice are amazing pieces of advice that warriors and their families need to know about. And I, as a warrior myself with caregivers who I tend to say, never did I know that they were struggling, even in my struggle, never did I know if they were hurting. I would add that caregiver support is something that is also just as important in terms of mental health, childcare, who's watching the little brother, who's watching the little sister, who's driving other family members, and who's supporting the caregiver. And I would add that in transitioning as well, that you all as caregivers need just as much support in navigating this system that can sometimes turn into the wild, wild west if we don't pay attention to it. So I do appreciate all of your advices for our transitioning caregivers. Dr. Nina, any additional words of advice? We're getting closer to the end of our beautiful webinar, and I just want to open it up to you if you wanted to add any additional pieces of advice and considerations.
I just want to say that all of the warriors today they inspire me to continue to do what I do. I just want to say overall, it's really important, as all of our warriors said, is that knowing your body, knowing what works best for you is something that you have to cultivate and continue to work on and to strive for excellence in all you do. You are your best advocate. Remember that. Understand that change is a natural process of life, that we all have to change. Life changes, things around us change constantly. but you can't grow, and you can't grow and mature as a person if you don't have some level of discomfort and grow from these changes, learn from your mistakes, and mature as a person. Okay. You are developing resilient skills. Learning how to bounce back from setbacks makes you a warrior. Always remember that.
Those are beautiful words. We are warriors after all. Um, so I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'm going to thank you all for sharing your beautiful stories today with us, and taking the time out and celebrating World Sickle Cell Day in this fashion. Your stories are important. Your stories matter. I was very honored to be able to sit and talk with you all today and to meet you all. And hear about your journeys. So with that being said, I am going to pass it over to our fearless leader, Ms. Tisha Samuels, to close out the day. We're, again, very grateful for you all to have come and celebrated with us. What are the kids doing this day? Period. So thank you all, and giving it over to Ms. Tisha.
Thank you, LED. All I can say to this panel is wow, wow, wow. I am so excited and honored to be able to host such an incredible group of warriors and caregivers. You really inspire me and John to keep moving forward. Just all of the insights that you all have shared, I'm sure have blessed so many people on this call today. And it's something that I wish as a warrior, when I was making that transition, that I had to be able to fall back on, to come onto a webinar such as this and glean information to help me make that transition better. I was so excited to get the panel started that I did not officially introduce myself or my team, for those who had joined the call. So those who may not know me, my name is Tisha Samuels, and I'm here today alongside my amazing husband, John Samuels. Together, we are the proud co-founders of Journey to Excellence. So I so appreciate him. I just want to give like so much thought and praise to him, because sometimes he's in the background and I don't give him his just due. So today, honey, I say thank you so much for your support. At Journey to Excellence, our mission is rooted in love and advocacy and action, right? We provide direct services and life enriching programs to adult warriors and sickle cell caregivers. Our goal is to bridge the gap between awareness and advocacy, between needs and resources. And we do this through three core pillars, and that is awareness, advocacy, and support. So through the year, we host and attend events to shine a light on the stigma, the pain, and the very real challenges that come with living with sickle cell disease. But even as we recognize the struggles, we never forget to celebrate the strength, courage, and excellence of our warriors. As we bring today's powerful conversation to a close, I wanted to express my deepest gratitude to each of you who took the time to join us. Whether you're a sickle cell warrior, a caregiver, provider, or advocate, just an ally from the community, your presence and engagement today has truly blessed us. A special thank you goes out to our moderator and each of our panelists for the insight, vulnerability, and lived experience you shared. You've helped us all better understand what it truly means to transition from teen to adulthood with sickle cell disease. We also want to sincerely thank our sponsor, Pfizer, to Natasha Chambers, who I think had to drop the call, but she truly helped us to bring this important webinar to life. Their partnership makes conversations like this possible, and we're grateful for their continued commitment to the sickle cell community. The links to those two websites that she referenced is actually in the chat. At Journey to Excellence, we believe that awareness is just the beginning. It is through community advocacy and support that real change happens. So we invite you to journey with us even after today. So be sure to follow, like, and share our content on social media. We're at Facebook at Journey to Excellence, spelled out, and on Instagram and TikTok at Journey to Excellence. John has provided that information and the link to follow us in the chat. I wanted to make a few announcements. Sometimes we miss things in our emails, and there's some great things going on in the sickle cell community. So I wanted to take a few minutes of your time to just let you know what's going on. So registration is now open for the Sickle Cell Warrior Conference. It is happening July 15th through the 20th in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a phenomenal opportunity for connection, education, and celebration. The registration link and scholarship application for lodging are both in the chat, so you don't want to miss that. John is getting ready to drop that in there really quickly. Also, save the date because Journey to Excellence is hosting its fourth annual 5K walk run at Walker Mill Regional Park on Saturday, September the 13th. It's one of our favorite days of the year. We fill it with movement, music, and community. Registration will open in July, so mark your calendars and lace up those shoes and sneakers. And lastly, we want to share an important research opportunity from the University of Florida College of Nursing. If you are between the ages of 18 and 45, have sickle cell disease or trait, and are planning to have a child in the future or now, you may be eligible to participate in a study focused on parenting goals, inheritance education, and reproductive options. Compensation is available. So to learn more, there's a number and an email that you can view in the chat. On behalf of Journey to Excellence, thank you again for showing up, for speaking up, and standing with this community. Remember, we recognize the challenges, but we will always celebrate the excellence of sickle cell warriors. If you would like to get more information and get involved with Journey to Excellence, email us at info@journeytoexcellence.gov. Until next time, stay connected, stay encouraged, and keep journeying with us. Take care and have a wonderful Juneteenth and World Sickle Cell Day, everyone.
Well, I wanted to say something really fast.
Of course.
Just a reminder that the conference is in Orlando,
Orlando.
Florida this year instead of Atlanta, Georgia.
I'm so sorry. Yes, it is in Orlando. Thank you so much for correcting me.
I just wanted to let so everybody knows.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And the links are in the chat, everyone.
Happy World Sickle Cell Day.
Happy World Sickle
Stay
Cell Day.
hydrated.
Happy
It's hot
World
out
Sickle
there.
Cell Day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.